Hello everyone and welcome to our screenwriting workshop. In this very first session, we'll explore how a rich piece of prose, like Rubin's Nightmare and the Echoes of the Past, can be transformed into a professional screenplay. In today's lesson, you will learn the key differences between prose storytelling and screenwriting, how to translate inner thoughts and atmosphere into visual, cinematic action, the standard screenplay structure, scene headings, action lines, and dialogue. And finally, you'll practice rewriting a piece of prose into a formatted screenplay scene. Rubin's Nightmare and the Echoes of the Past. Rubin, a man in his early 30s, found himself entrapped within the abyssal darkness of a nightmare. There, a hag-like crone, her face a parchment of deep-etched wrinkles, loomed over him in the suffocating blackness. Her eyes, large and bulging, brimmed with a palpable, malevolent hatred. Her trembling, skeletal hands reached out, brandishing an iron claw, superheated to a searing, white-hot intensity. The incandescent metal seemed to kiss his flesh, eliciting cries of profound terror that erupted from the very core of his being. A narrow, lightless corridor appeared to drag him inexorably toward a hellish unknown, each forced step plunging him deeper into the abyss of dread. The gentle murmur of his wife's voice finally coaxed him back from the clutches of that terrifying nightmare. A cold sweat beaded on his forehead, and his heart hammered within his chest like a frantic war drum. His gaze drifted to the faded scars upon his hands, pale testaments left by countless nights haunted by such visions. These nightmares had been his unwavering companions since the very dawn of his life, embracing him in their chilling grip every single night. "My dear, you had the nightmare again?" Anna, his kind and loving wife, enfolded him in her embrace. Rubin swallowed with difficulty, his throat feeling constricted. "I wish it would end, Anna. It feels as though these nightmares will never relinquish their hold on me. Why does that old woman always seek to inflict harm upon me?" He did not utter the Turkish words that clung to his mind from the dream. They felt like fragmented pieces of a dark secret buried deep within his past, and speaking them aloud to Anna felt akin to drawing her into the suffocating darkness of his own torment. Yet the sight of the faint but undeniable burn marks upon his hands lent a disturbing weight to the nightmares, suggesting they were not merely phantoms of his imagination, but rather echoes of a forgotten reality etched into his very being. Anna placed her hand gently over the faint scars on Rubin's hand, her fingers softly tracing the pale lines on his skin. Her voice was calm and thoughtful. "Rubin, do you know what these marks? What they are from?" Rubin took a deep breath, his gaze fixed intently on his hands. "So many times, countless times, my parents were questioned about these marks by the police and school officials. They wanted to be sure it wasn't a sign of child abuse. I remember their worried, weary faces, the repeated, probing questions, but it always remained an ambiguous point, a secret veiled in impenetrable mystery." His tone grew tinged with bitterness. "My parents, they always said it happened because I was playing with fire as a child. An accident, a childish prank that left its indelible trace forever." But his voice softened immediately, as if he didn't want to cast a negative light upon his parents. "But Anna, I have absolutely no ill or negative memories of my parents. They were always kind and supportive. I can't imagine them being the cause of these scars." Then, his voice becoming more strained and hollow, he continued, "You know, Anna, in most of these nightmares, I see myself in a narrow, shadowed alley. My head is gashed. Blood covers my face and drips drop by agonizing drop from my chin. I feel like a 6-year-old child, utterly terrified that I'm about to die." He closed his eyes as if reliving the scene, his voice trembling slightly. "In that same alley, I see children, ragged children throwing stones at an old woman, a terrifying crone-like old woman. And that old woman, she's scaring them too, with a face contorted with anger and ear-splitting guttural sounds." Anna took Rubin's hand, which trembled slightly in hers, and said with a determined, unwavering voice, "Rubin, I know how much these nightmares torment your soul. It's agonizing for me to see you suffer like this." She paused, looking intently into his eyes. "If this nightmare happened just once, we could dismiss it as a fleeting delusion. But when it comes to you night after night, year after year, it can't just be a meaningless occurrence." Her voice took on a reassuring, gentle tone. I'm sure there are clues woven into these nightmares. Whispers of a past you don't remember. This old woman, this alley, these Turkish words, these burn marks on your hands. None of it is without reason. Anna leaned in slightly and gently touched Rubin's face. Instead of being paralyzed by fear by these nightmares and wanting to flee from their grasp, why don't you try to follow these spectral clues? Maybe by finding the answers to these questions, the nightmares will finally release their oppressive grip on you. We'll do this together, Rubin. I am here for you, unwavering. The call of duty and lingering fears. Rubin pushed himself from the bed, the rumpled sheets clinging to him, and headed towards the bathroom. A cold shower, he hoped, might help to untangle the knotted threads of his turbulent thoughts. He had an important meeting at the company today and needed to prepare. Yet his mind was still snagged on the nocturnal terrors and the enigma of his mysterious scars, a puzzle now complicated by the old woman's Turkish words and the vague, haunting images of a narrow alley. Anna watched him, her concern etched deeply across her face. Another international trip for antiques, Rubin? Her voice was laced with an almost palpable worry. Every time you go on one of these journeys, my heart shatters 1,000 times. Why do you have to expose yourself to such peril? Rubin offered a reassuring smile from the bathroom doorway, a smile that strove to quell Anna's gnawing anxiety. My dear, this is my work, and I find great satisfaction in it. He was more than just an employee. He was his boss's trusted confidant and protector, a martial artist whose skills were as essential as his discerning eye for ancient treasures. Anna sighed, a profound weariness in her voice. But I can't be calm. I'm still haunted by that harrowing trip to Pakistan. Her eyes met his, pleading for him to grasp the depth of her fear. The memory of Rubin nearly being buried alive there, escaping by the narrowest of margins, was a phantom that refused to leave Anna's tormented thoughts. Rubin stepped closer and pressed a tender kiss to her forehead. Don't worry, everything will be fine. He attempted to project unwavering confidence, but a flicker of the old dread from that incident still lurked within him. Rubin emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist, steam rising from his dark tousled hair. He dressed in a crisp suit and an immaculately ironed shirt. His gaze lingered once more on the faint burn marks on his hand, then drifted to his reflection in the mirror, as if searching for answers hidden within his own features. He was ready for the company. The unveiling at the company meeting. Rubin, in the staff break room, was sharing coffee and quiet camaraderie with his colleagues. The bitter, comforting aroma of the coffee and the low murmur of conversations filled the air. Everyone was discussing today's meeting, but no one knew its topic. A ripple of curiosity passed through their expressions. A short while later, Salvador, the company president, entered. His tall stature and grave demeanor immediately shifted the atmosphere, settling a hush over the room. He looked around and, with a voice that always carried a mix of respect and authority, inquired about the well-being of his employees. Rubin set his coffee cup on the table and asked, "Salvador, what's the meeting about today?" "No one seems to know." Salvador smiled, a rare sight. "Roland, a close friend of mine, requested this meeting. He asked that my best employees be present." As Salvador spoke, Roland, a man in an expensive suit with a shrewd, calculating face who dealt in antiques and possessed his own private collection, entered with 3 of his employees. After the initial pleasantries, Roland and Salvador headed to Salvador's office to begin their private discussion. Roland's employees joined Rubin and his colleagues. Maria, a young, energetic woman with bright eyes, spoke excitedly about an upcoming trip, as if their destination were a lost paradise. Her gaze met Rubin's and she offered a smile, a hint of curiosity sparkling in her eyes. The owl woman, nightmare manifested. Rubin's brow furrowed in skepticism. He harbored doubts about Roland's secret adventure, not just because of the inherent dangers, but due to the very nature of the work itself. "This is exceptionally complicated work," he interjected, his voice firm and unwavering. "It requires specialized experts, not just a few good men. Our company's expertise lies in buying and selling antiques from intermediaries, illegal excavators and smugglers. We have no practical experience in fieldwork." He looked at Salvador and then at Roland. "And now we hear we have to go to a completely unknown foreign country and excavate there illegally? This isn't logical. The risks far outweigh the potential profit." Roland, seemingly unfazed by Rubin's skepticism, merely pulled out his phone. A quick call, and a short while later, 2 elderly Turkish men entered the office, accompanied by a translator. Their faces were weathered, etched with the lines of countless suns and ancient wisdom. Their eyes held a deep, almost mystical knowledge. "These gentlemen," Roland announced, gesturing towards them, "can assist us with the excavation. They are from the region where our treasure is believed to be hidden." The elder Turks, through their translator, spoke in hushed, serious tones, their voices raspy with age. "We can guide you to the site, and we can help with the digging." The translator relayed their words, his own expression turning solemn. "But you must understand the dangers that surround it. The land holds old spirits." Then the true dread entered the room, palpable and chilling. "There is also an owl woman," the translator conveyed, his voice now slightly strained, as if the words themselves carried a supernatural weight. "She dwells in a ruined castle, near the ancient graveyard that surrounds the treasure. Her skin is like withered parchment drawn taut over sharp bones, and her eyes are larger than any human's, black and bottomless, filled with an ancient, burning malevolence." As your professional screenwriting professor, this narrative text, Rubin's Nightmare and the Echoes of the Past, serves as an excellent and rich exercise in using detail to build mystery, character, and necessary groundwork. We are presented with a text that stops abruptly before the climax, right at the introduction of a major threat, the owl woman. This is an advantage, as it allows us to focus intensely on structure, character introduction, conflict creation, and suspense techniques. 1. The opening scene and hook. Analysis. The text begins immediately with a nightmare sequence. This not only establishes a powerful hook to grab the audience's attention, but also introduces the most significant mysterious element of the story, the identity and nature of the hag-like crone. Technique. Use of sensory language and powerful imagery, e.g., abyssal darkness, parchment of deep-etched wrinkles, searing, white-hot intensity, to show terror rather than tell it. Crucial detail. The mention of Turkish words that Rubin suppresses. This immediately creates a subplot concerning heritage and an unknown past, signaling to the audience that this story is about identity and roots, not just fear. 2. Introduction of the protagonist, Rubin, and internal conflict. Analysis. Rubin is introduced immediately after the nightmare, and we quickly learn the depth of his problem through his reactions. Central conflict. Rubin is trapped by an internal conflict, the lifelong struggle against nightmares that haunt him every single night. This makes the story's stake personal and emotional. Physical scars as plot device. The faded scars upon his hands is a masterstroke. This physical detail elevates the nightmares beyond mere delusion and turns them into a material reality. It highlights the gap between his parents' narrative, playing with fire, and the unknown truth. This is a perfect plot device to propel the mystery forward. Contrasting characterization. Rubin, while vulnerable and terrified in sleep, is introduced in the waking world as his boss is trusted, confidant and protector, and a martial artist. This contrast between inner and outer self gives the character psychological depth. 3. The supportive character, Anna, and her role in the plot. Analysis. Anna functions as a catalyst and the voice of reason in Rubin's life. She does not allow him to escape. Instead, she urges him toward confrontation. The ally-mentor role, she is the one who articulates the puzzle for both Rubin and the audience. This old woman, this ally, these Turkish words, these burn marks on your hands. None of it is without reason. Shift in action. Anna's suggestion to follow these spectral clues is the emotional turning point. She in effect assigns Rubin the main quest of the story, discover the truth of his past to end his torment. 4. Groundwork for the external plot. Analysis. The section The Call of Duty cleverly connects the internal conflict, nightmares, to the external conflict, travel and work, establishing the world. Rubin's job as an antiques buyer and protector immediately sets the stage for adventure in a foreign country and dangerous environments, foreshadowing fears. Anna's worry about the harrowing trip to Pakistan acts as strong foreshadowing. It reminds the audience that Rubin regularly faces life and death situations, making the new trip's danger credible. 5. The inciting incident and launching the mission. Analysis. The company meeting serves as the inciting incident for the external plot, physically bringing the two story threads, nightmare and work, together in one place, establishing mistrust. Rubin wisely voices his skepticism regarding Roland's secret adventure. This positions Rubin as a logical, cautious character and makes the risk feel more serious to the audience. Introduction of mystery elements. The arrival of the two elderly Turkish men is a critical step. They not only provide the necessary skills for the illegal excavation, but also introduce a supernatural and horror element by warning of the old spirits and specifically the all-woman. 6. The climax build-up and final connection. Analysis. This is where the writer's skill in integrating storylines culminates. Overlapping threads. The translator's description of the Allah woman is strikingly similar to the hag-like crone from Rubin's Nightmares. Nightmare crone, parchment of deep-etched wrinkles, eyes, large and bulging. Woman, skin is like withered parchment, eyes, larger than any human's, black and bottomless. Conclusion for the audience. The writer is preparing the audience to believe that the nightmares are not just nightmares, but a warning or a suppressed memory of this very all-woman. This connection maximizes the story's suspense and leaves the audience eagerly awaiting the next part. Summary and screenwriting takeaways. This text is a blueprint for effective story structuring. Start with action. The nightmare. Immediate audience engagement. Establish internal conflict. The scars, the unknown past. Introduce the ally and define the mission, Anna. Introduce external conflict, the dangerous work trip. Merge the two threads. The external plot, the all-woman, mirrors the internal plot, the nightmare crone. The main lesson for you, the students. In writing, every detail must serve a purpose. The scars, the Turkish words, and even Rubin's job all act as puzzle pieces that, when the all-woman is finally introduced, complete the picture and drive the suspense to its highest point. Details are not just for color. They are the fuel of the story. That is a compelling and richly layered piece of prose. It is an excellent text to use for a screenwriting workshop. Here is Lesson 1. Entering the World of the Screenplay. Presented as a super professional screenwriting professor would, using the provided text as the core example for instruction. Screenwriting Workshop. Lesson 1. Entering the World of the Screenplay. Good evening, class. Before you is a complex, evocative, and deeply personal piece of writing. It functions brilliantly as a short story. It pulls us into Rubin's internal world, builds a thick atmosphere of dread, and sets up a profound mystery involving his past, his scars, and the terrifying hag-like crone. Our first task as aspiring screenwriters is to understand how we take this compelling story and translate it into the functional, blueprint-like document known as a screenplay. 1. The difference between story and screenplay. The most fundamental concept you must internalize is this: A story is an experience. A screenplay is an instruction manual for an experience. Feature, story, prose. Screenplay, the blueprint. Focus. Internal thoughts, feelings, atmosphere, exposition, backstory. External observable action, dialogue, and setting. Pacing. Can linger on descriptions and internal monologue, relentlessly focused on forward momentum and visual clarity. Delivery. Delivered directly from the author to the reader. Delivered from the screenwriter to the director, actors, designers, and crew. Application to Rubin's text. Look at the very first paragraph. Rubin, a man in his early 30s, found himself entrapped within the abyssal darkness of a nightmare. There, a hag-like crone, her face a parchment of deep-etched wrinkles, loomed over him in the suffocating blackness. Her eyes, large and bulging, brimmed with a palpable, malevolent hatred. This is beautiful prose, but it's not a screenplay. Why? Found himself entrapped within the abyssal darkness. Too internal. We can't film abyssal darkness. We can film a black void or a narrow, lightless corridor, brimmed with a palpable, malevolent hatred. We can't film hatred itself. We must describe the visual manifestation of that hatred. The crone's lips curl into a vicious snarl. Her eyes, bulging black, stare with chilling fixity. Your job is to translate everything that is felt into something that can be seen or heard. 2. The screenwriter's role in film and television. As the screenwriter, you are the chief architect of the narrative. You do not control the budget, the casting, or the camera. You control the words on the page that become the foundation for all those things. In the context of the story, your role is to establish the world. You must clearly define the contrast between Rubin's waking life and his nightmare reality. Waking world. Anna's gentle voice, the crisp suit, the office break room. Order, logic, support. Nightmare world. Suffocating blackness. White-hot iron, existential dread. The owl-woman. Chaos, pain, mystery. Structure the conflict. The text beautifully establishes the central conflict. Rubin versus the unresolved past. The scars. The nightmares, the Turkish words, and the owl-woman are all external manifestations of this internal war. Pace the revelation. Notice how the information is released. The nightmare. Then the scars. Then the parents' lie. Then the childhood memory of the alley. Then the Turkish words. And finally, the mention of the owl-woman in the office. You are laying a trail of breadcrumbs for the audience. This strategic release of information is the core of good screenwriting. 3. The standard screenplay structure. A screenplay is organized into specific units. Memorize and practice these religiously. A scene heading, slugline. This is the non-negotiable address tag for every location and time change. It tells the reader and the crew where and when we are. Format, int, xt, location, day, night. Example from the text. The gentle murmur of his wife's voice finally coaxed him back. Int Rubin and Anna's bedroom. Night. Rubin pushed himself from the bed, the rumpled sheets clinging to him, and headed towards the bathroom. Int Rubin's apartment. Bathroom, morning. B. Action. Description toxics. This is where you write the observable, objective reality of the scene. It must be written in the present tense and only include things a camera can capture. Example from the text. Intim dream, narrow corridor, night. Abyssal darkness, the sound of a man's terrified scream. A hag-like crone, face a roadmap of deep wrinkles, looms over the camera. Her eyes, large and bulging, brim with a palpable, malevolent hatred. Her trembling, skeletal hands reach out, brandishing an iron claw superheated to a searing, white-hot intensity. The incandescent metal seems to kiss Rubin's flesh. He cries out. A narrow, lightless corridor drags him away. Notice the use of all caps for sounds, props, and character introductions. This is standard industry formatting used for emphasis. B. Dialogue. The words spoken by the characters. It is the quickest way to reveal character, motive, and conflict. Example from the text. Anna, his kind and loving wife, enfolded him in her embrace. Rubin swallowed with difficulty, his throat feeling constricted. Anna. My dear, you had the nightmare again? The character name is in all caps, centered above the line of dialogue. The prose description of Rubin's reaction is translated into a parenthetical, or action before the dialogue. Rubin, strained. I wish it would end. Anna. It feels as though these nightmares will never relinquish their hold on me. Why does that old woman always seek to inflict harm upon me? Exercise writing a short, everyday scene. Your assignment is to take the prose, detailing the meeting setup and rewrite it as a formatted screenplay excerpt. Original text. Rubin, in the staff break room, was sharing coffee and quiet camaraderie with his colleagues. The bitter, comforting aroma of the coffee and the low murmur of conversations filled the air. Everyone was discussing today's meeting, but no one knew its topic. A ripple of curiosity passed through their expressions. A short while later, Salvador, the company president, entered. His tall stature and grave demeanor immediately shifted the atmosphere, settling a hush over the room. He looked around and, with a voice that always carried a mix of respect and authority, inquired about the well-being of his employees. Rubin set his coffee cup on the table and asked, Salvador, what's the meeting about today? No one seems to know. Salvador smiled. A rare sight. Roland, a close friend of mine, requested this meeting. He asked that my best employees be present. Your task, format this scene using correct scene headings. Descriptive action, present tense, observable only, and correctly formatted dialogue. We will review your scenes next week. Get comfortable with this structure. It is the language of cinema. Screenwriting masterclass, adapting prose, unlocking mystery. These exercises are designed to help students translate the internal world of the prose into the external visual and dramatic language of a screenplay. Exercise 1. The nightmare sequence, visualizing tone and action. Goal, translate a terrifying internal experience into a concise, visually dynamic scene. Task, adapt the opening nightmare sequence into a one-page screenplay scene. Approximately 4 to 8 lines of action description, 3 to 5 lines of dialogue per sound. Identify key visuals. What are the 3 most terrifying, high-impact visuals in the prose? E.g., the crone's face, the white-hot iron claw, the claustrophobic corridor. Focus on sensory detail. Use sound, Rubin's cries, the whisper of the claw, and lighting, the abyssal darkness, the searing white-hot metal, to establish the tone. The inciting image, hook. The scene should start in media res, in the middle of the action. The prose detail, screenplay translation, action visual, abyssal darkness, suffocating blackness, int abyssal void, night, pitch black. A single, rippled beam of light reveals hag-like crone, bulging, malevolent hatred. A crone, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, looms over him. Her eyes are large black hollows. Iron claw superheated to a searing, white-hot intensity. In her skeletal hands, an iron claw glows white-hot, casting a severe incandescent light. Exercise 2. Dialogue and subtext. The morning after. Goal: analyze and rewrite dialogue to maximize subtext, making what is unsaid as powerful as what is said. Context: the conversation between Rubin and Anna after the nightmare. Task: the original prose is excellent, but let's compress and focus. Rewrite the following exchange, using specific parentheticals, e.g., wincing, a hollow laugh, dead serious, to reveal Rubin's internal conflict and Anna's quiet determination. Original exchange focus, Rubin's pain. The Turkish words, the ambiguous scars. Rewrite focus, 3-4 exchanges. Rubin's opening should be a desperate question, not a statement. Anna's action. Her focus on the scars should be the visual anchor. Rubin's defense, a quick line defending his parents, immediately followed by the dark memory. Anna's closure, a shift from comfort to a call to action. Example, starts Anna, softly tracing a scar. Your parents said it was playing with fire. An accident. Rubin, a beat, he can't meet her eyes. They were good. Always kind. Looks at his hand. I just see myself in an alley, 6 years old, waiting to bleed out. Exercise 3. Character and conflict, the professional life. Goal: use the martial artist protector detail to create an immediate visual contrast and hint at future conflict. Context: Rubin's reflection on his job and Anna's fear about his travel. Task: write 2 short, juxtaposed scenes, 1 to 2 page total, that define Rubin's dual nature. Scene A, the confidant, 1/4 page. Rubin in his suit, performing his professional role. Keep the dialogue brief. Scene B, the protector, 1/4 page. A flashback or a present day physical moment that shows his actual skill. The martial artist, this should be a direct, non-verbal response to Anna's fear. Suggestion for Scene B. As Anna speaks of the Pakistan trip, I'm still haunted by that harrowing trip. Show Rubin in the bathroom, not just dressing, but subtly checking his own reflexes in the mirror, a focused, quiet discipline that belies the suit. A flash of a memory, a hand grappling another, a quick, efficient move. Exercise 4, structural turning point, the catalyst of clues. Goal: pinpoint the exact moment the story shifts from internal psychological drama to external action mystery, and craft a dramatic scene ending. Context: the company meeting and the arrival of the elderly Turkish men. Task: analyze the scene where the 2 elderly Turkish men and the translator enter the office. Identify the clue. What specific element in the prose connects the meeting's objective, the treasure hunt, directly to Rubin's nightmare? Hint: the origin of the new guides and the potential location of the treasure. Write the scene ending. Focus on Rubin's point of view. The introduction of the Turkish men should be an oh shit moment for him. The moment his personal nightmare crashes into his professional reality. Screenplay focus. A shot focusing on Rubin's face, close on Rubin, watching the Turkish men, the sound of their language, the same words he heard in the dream, should be a sudden jarring sound cue. Translator: OS. To Roland: these gentlemen are from the region where our treasure is believed to be hidden. The older Turk speaks, a low guttural murmur. The specific Turkish words from the dream. Close on Rubin. The color drains from his face. His eyes dart to his hand, to the faint burn marks. Fade to black. That's it for today's session. We've seen how a story, even one filled with poetic imagery and internal monologue, only becomes a screenplay when we turn it into something that can be seen and heard on screen. Working with Rubin's nightmare, we discovered how to craft a terrifying, cinematic moment from what begins as an internal experience. If you found this class helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next lesson. In our next session, we'll dive deeper into dialogue and subtext, learning how to make what's unsaid just as powerful as what's spoken. Stay tuned!